what's new might be a little interesting for you there, because if you haven't seen it, what's new might not make that much sense. But ultimately, with this particular product, we're actually doing releases quite rapidly. So we did have our most recent release was back in March, version 1.3. And ultimately we brought in a couple of different capabilities here around intentions. So for those of you that aren't aware of what social engagement does, it's a platform which goes out to look at social media sources such as Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, a range of different news bulletin boards and things like that, and it consumes all of that and provides a whole range of analytical information. We then run across some rules to understand sentiment, so is what people are saying positive or negative, but now what we've also introduced is this intention. And so what happens here is it looks at the post, and for those of you in a sales type environment, it says, am I going to purchase something? For those of you in a service type environment, it's saying, am I requesting help? Am I requesting support? And it's looking at the construct of that and trying to determine, based on those words, what do we think that that person wants from us? So we've sort of started to build in this intention capability. But we've also, for those of you that might or might not probably be aware, but there's integration between this social engagement platform and CRM. So when we hear a post around, I would like to engage with you, Mr. Department, Mrs. Department, about a particular service, can you help me? Then we can pick that up, we can pick up the intention and say that person's requesting some help. Let's go push that as a case into CRM, so now we've got this ability to go through and process that and make sure that the citizen is actually starting to get some service back from that request. Before this version, it had to be a manual thing. We go in and see the post, we should push a button and it'd go and create a case. Now what we've got is this automation rule, so we can go through and say whenever there is a post which looks like X, Y, and Z, automatically go and create a case in the system. And so it might be things based on a particular keyword, it might be based on a particular person of influence. So we also monitor how influential is that person within a social media environment. If they're highly influential, we might want to create a case. If they're not, then we might want to review it before doing so. We've got a whole range of different languages which we do sentiment analysis in, so we introduced Arabic. We then start to also introduce the capability to share these posts out with people that aren't necessarily social engagement users. So if there's another group of people within your organisation that would need to enact on a particular post, then share that out with them. So that was all what came in within March. Now I was planning on doing a bit of a demo, which is the time I might have to skip through that. There is a new version which is actually being pushed out in some instances tonight. In some instances tomorrow, in some instances the rest of the week. I was actually kind of hoping that I'd get that one before today's presentation, but my instance is not getting done for 2 days. But what's happening here is we're introducing new custom tags, and so this is just another way of you sort of highlighting particular posts and assigning different intentions associated with that, and then the system starts to learn from this, and it starts to look at the construct of the words which are in there, and if you say, well, this type of thing is this particular grant or this particular type of case, the system starts to learn that and sees whenever we see these same sorts of constructs in a post, then it automatically starts to assign these things. So this is where we're going with the tool set. Also introduced a whole range of new sources, such as forums, there's also Instagram coming in, and some other discussion boards. We've also introduced the capability to work with Azure Event Hubs. For those of you that aren't aware of what that is, it's basically it's a Azure service which can consume enormous amounts of data very, very quickly. And so in some instances, there might be a huge amount of posts. So as today, for example, with the buzz around the imminent election, if I was actually listening for election, my usage of social just would have spiked like nothing else from last night. And so as we start to see a huge number of posts and we want to report on that, Azure Event Hub allows us to consume millions and millions of transactions in sub-second times to then allow you to report that. So we've got that running across there. And then also just the capability, if someone's going through and they're doing a post on Facebook, for example, or Twitter, then to be able to reply to them privately as opposed to publicly. Just very, very quickly, just for those of you that haven't seen the interface, this is what it looks like. So we go through and we define a range of search topics, and then it goes through and then looks at that, and it gives you a whole range of data around where are people posting from, what particular sources are they posting from, what are some of the comments, etc. in here, and we've got a range of different capabilities of going down into locations and drilling down into the maps, and depending on their location services, I can actually see someone is making a negative post from this building as opposed to someone who's making a positive post from the next building, and sort of interacting with all the CRM data there as well. So for those of you that are interested in looking at a little bit more, let me know. So we've got a little over time, but I figured probably most of you here will be more interested in hearing from industry than from me. Very good.
Can I ask you a question, very much from a user perspective,
yes,
a user perspective in industry? So is social engagement